We gather in hope that in yielding enthusiasm and trust that a better world can be made. A world more just, a world more caring, a world free to find the best in people. In our worship, we recognize this search. We recognize the strength and the companionship needed to build this world. A world where creation's stone is graced by divinity's fingerprint. Amen. Good afternoon, good morning even. Might be afternoon for some people. Feels like afternoon. Good morning, and I'm grateful for everyone who's able to be here in person, as well as those who are listening in online. Whatever reason it is that you have come here, be it a space to share in some sorrow, some sadness that you've experienced, that you face, whether you need a space and time to shed some tears, I hope you can do so with this community. Perhaps you've come with anticipation for tonight's game, with some excitement and some joy and some verve. And if you have come here to celebrate, I hope you can find this community conducive to that as well. Perhaps you've come seeking just a few words of wisdom. I hope they might be others. And perhaps you've come simply with a hope to rest with the divine. If so, I hope the divine may be sensed here. We have the lighting of our chalice, and today we have the words of the Reverend David Johnson. The abundance of this place, the faith of its people, its songs of compassion and joy, will be wholeness and wisdom and indwelling light, that all may find here a constant home light in a world full of we come to be that place for the world, to fulfill our destiny, as some might say, to encounter our being as others might know, to be the best and true self as individuals and as a community. And to reaffirm our community here and online, we have our covenant developed by Cross Street a few years ago, which has appeared on the screen and should appear online momentarily. So do read it along with me. If you're here in person, keep your voice somewhat on the softer side. If I can't hear it, then it's okay. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. And as we move through these concentric circles of being, recognition of the universal care for all people, the recognition of our own faith tradition, and then the acknowledgement of our own chapel's history, we turn to that inmost circle of personal prayer and reflection. Graceful visitor, ever fleeting, like stardust that catches and throws a glimmer to our eyes, punctuating a moment in life perfectly. Or perhaps as a poetic line whose beauty and truth teases out the self-same values within our hearts, lifting our spirits as the most gentle breeze lifts the butterfly. In our minds, the memories colliding through random encounters, meetings unforeseen, unplanned, for which we are grateful, knock on our door. Unexpected, but loved no less. Often unanswered, as fear and busyness assault our sensibilities. Hopefully answered today. Amen. So we turn to a time of singing, Nancy Dorian's "Dear Weaver of Our Lives" design. Our first reading today comes from Richard Holloway, the Scottish writer and cleric. It's from his book, Dancing on the Edge. There's something about life that calls us to believe, even though our faith coexists with pain and doubt. We believe that life is more than sorrow and horror. There is also beauty and meaning. There is love and compassion. There are great saints and great souls. All of those pose as much a problem as evil in a meaningless universe. The answer of faith is that some purpose of love lies behind it all. We cannot prove its existence. Indeed, there are times when we hold on to the belief in spite of what appears to be overwhelming evidence against it. Yet it continues to assert itself against all meaninglessness, against the view of the universe as our most beleaguered. We choose to go on believing as an act of defiance against the great emptiness that threatens to engulf us. If the universe is ultimately pitiless and without meaning, then we are better than all of it, because we are also capable of compassion. We are able to cry at the sorrow, love for the beauty of it, and these are greater things than emptiness. They are more powerful than the great void. So we go on saying yes, trusting that our confidence, however frail, is responding to some great love beyond ourselves that haunts the universe. Dancing on the Edge by Richard Holloway. And we have as well a few words from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker, In the Midst of a World. In the midst of a world marked by tragedy and beauty, there must be those who bear witness against unnecessary destruction, and who, with faith, stand and lead in freedom with grace and power. Be those who speak honestly and do not avoid seeing what must be seen of sorrow and outrage, of tenderness and wonder. There must be those whose grief troubles the watcher, while their voices sing and speak. There must be those whose exuberance rises with lovely energy that articulates earth's joys. There must be those who are restless for respectful and loving companionship among human beings, whose presence invited people to. There must be those who gather with the congregation of remembered and compassion and draw water from old wells and walk with the simple path of love for neighbor. And there must be communities of people who seek to do justice, love, who call on the strength of soul to heal, transform, and bless life. There must be religious witness in the midst of the world by the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker. In my family, in the area where I grew up, we were expected to wear our Sunday best when we went to church. I remember still leaving church wearing a brown cotton clip-on tie that I pulled off as we left chapel, and with my ever-present curiosity took apart to understand the metal and plastic mechanism that was hidden from view and seemed to work magic in making myself look presentable. Days could be shorts and t-shirts, jeans, what have you, but Sunday morning there was an expectation of cleanliness, I suppose with the expectation bring us a little bit closer to godliness. And I should say very much right now that this isn't an admonishment. It's only an observation from my childhood. Other experiences may vary, but the pull of youth, of life. I think about how I dress now. I have advanced to traditional neckties and even sometimes go without, such as today. But I can feel my own level of discomfort if I show up in much less than this. Again, any moral lesson in the way we dress when we come to church? At the moment, I'm only providing exposition. From a traditional perspective, one is dressing themselves up for God, making the effort to be presentable on a day dedicated to spiritual things, a Sabbath where the mundane, the worldly, is set aside for the sacred, the holy. And just as the wall separating Sunday from shopping and secular activities is torn down, so too now is this concern with presenting ourselves in our best light. There are studies discussing the negative effects of social media, especially as many people seek to post only positive stories in their lives. We often talk about the encroachment of sort of secular activities into the Sunday space, but we don't often talk about the sort of dissolving of the Sunday best atmosphere branching out into our everyday lives. Tuning in, one who is feeling perhaps a bit low will likely discover hundreds of comments and posts from friends and strangers espousing the greatness of life, the beautiful vistas in their homes, the perfect loaf of bread that they managed to bake. We, of course, want to feel joy at other people's successes, but sometimes we don't give ourselves the time to mourn the loss of a day for ourselves. It's difficult to dress in our Sunday best all the time. Even here in this chapel, we see the subtle clues to this effect. On the screen, you can't quite see it, but there is a cord running down our internet cable, connecting us to the internet, and it wraps behind me and goes out of sight. If we shifted the camera down a bit, you would see a spaghetti junction of webcams, microphones, power cables, and so forth streaming from that lamp. If we could move this column, you would see a mess of wires assembling in some haphazard collection. It's by no means pretty. And so the impulse is to set it aside, out of sight, out of mind. Instagram influencers, theatrical performances, chapels make forays into the online world. They all perhaps have a performative edge, a drive or a concern to create professional and clean productions. And they reveal the hidden side of their work. They demonstrate that a few degrees off of a camera we'll see a beach festooned with litter, or perhaps show that the backstage of a concert hall is not as grandiose as we may imagine. A lot of scenery is painted on just one side. Where the divine is everywhere. If we see God in the trees as we walk through the park, if we're inspired by poetry written centuries ago and football played this week, if we imagine a deep connection is possible not only in our churches, but in the litter-strewn streets, if we believe there is just as much dignity in those forced into substandard housing, or hope, however defined, is present and possible in all places, then do we still dress in our Sunday best? Would not our effort be but 1/7 of when the divine sees us? One possibility is to put on that perpetual smile, to be vigilant and ensure that our spirit and self are reflection perfection 24/7. We might imagine an ever-watchful eye observing our countenance at all times. But as I said, that is quite exhausting and quite near impossible. Or, and hear me out on this radical observation, we can acknowledge that God will see the mess. Spirited neighbors will likely see our cluttered countertops and unfinished projects, that the trees will sway beautifully as we run through the park late for class or trying to fix our hair on the bus, that the days we return from work too tired to clean, too tired to dress in society's expectations, are no less worthy of being seen in this state as well, that at our lowest there will be someone at our side, an inescapable companion. Not just that we will be seen when we are vulnerable, when we feel ugly, when we feel stupid, but that we will be loved nevertheless. Nevertheless. That in our hurt we will. Not only will we sometimes fail to wear our Sunday best, but it will be important to be seen that way. For that way has no less dignity. That way, that injured person, that human person, that us is good. We are good. We are all good. In many, we are seen and loved. So after you wake up, and before you put your face on or make yourself presentable, remember that it's fine to wear your Sunday best, and you can even wear it on many days. But it is you and not your clothing that is loved. Amen. We now have time for reflection with music from Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. You now have a chance to share your joys and your sorrows, your troubles. If you want to share these publicly, please come forward and light a candle. And if you're sharing something verbally, please come to the back to speak into the microphone for those listening online. And if you are listening online and wish to participate, please type into the chat box and I will read out your joy or your sorrow. I wanted to begin by lighting a joy. I had an opportunity to go on retreat this week. I went down to a beautiful sort of area in Evesham and met with a few colleagues. It was a delight and was obviously the furthest I'd been in a year and a half or so, which is still quite a surprise. And I was just grateful for that opportunity, and I'm feeling very inspirited, so thank you.
This is a candle for my friend Tudor, who is undergoing chemotherapy at the moment.
From Alan, a candle for staff at Bolton Royal Hospital for their skill and care. My operation was very successful. For all those joys and sorrows here spoken in our hearts. Let us return now to a time of prayer. May we know the joy of transforming some part of the world. In our lives, may we seek to make a difference, to help create the Eden that lingers in our hearts. May the forks we encounter be clear. May we know what path to take. And when we veer off course, may we find the way back. Eventually, may the world see in the daylight the world that we see in our greatest dreams. May the trials and challenges that have tripped us up in the past, the wrong turns, either through choice or circumstance, be not roadblocks as we progress along our journeys. May we find the rightness in those taxing times. May this gracious world be reflected in our actions towards others, aiming, caring, and forgiving. May we feel safe to challenge the world's injustice and to befriend the stranger. Amen. We now enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Thank you. We now have a few notices before we conclude our service. If you're in need of pastoral care, please write to me at minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. You can write as well if you wish to participate in the service by contributing a reading or joined us. You're more than welcome to join our mailing list, again by writing to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. Try pressing 7 first. It's all right. I will read out what would normally appear on the screen. So we have our Zoom tea and coffee as well at 1:30 today. The ID, if you're on our mailing list, you will have received the information, but the ID is 816-009-2020, and the passcode is CX0009-2020, and the passcode is CSC. So we hope that you're able to join us. That's at 1:30 today. And we're grateful as well for any donations that can assist the mission of the chapel. You're able to donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester, which is all spelled out in all one word. You can contact me or the committee or our treasurer for details about setting up a standing order if you wish to be a regular contributor. And for people who come to our services in person, we have a retiring collection as well as an envelope scheme if you are a taxpayer, so we can claim gift aid. I will be on holiday for the next 2 weeks. Many thanks to Peter and Adam, who will be taking 25th respectively, and Emma, who will be managing the IT. And they, of course, are regular sort of IT people, but that will be including sort of a great deal of setup and my. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to the 2 weeks, but I'm always looking forward to coming back as well. So we come now to our hymn, our second and final hymn today. Richard Seward Gilbert and Joyce Timmerman Gilbert's "Thanks Be for These."
So
Thank you to Aaron for the music. Thank you to Janet for the IT. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of Lucian Price. We mortals stumble forward over uneven ground, each carrying a golden vessel of the sacred fire, each in constant peril of falling and spilling it. The fire grows more precious for every mile that is marched. What is this fire? We do not know. It has warmth, can comfort others by its glow. Its flames can illumine the darkness from horizon to horizon, and, like stars, go on shining for ages after their candles have blown out. Amen. Go in peace.